So today's workshop is going to be about the science fair notebook, which is one of the parts of the science fair that people, I guess, usually know a bit less about, and some people are surprised to know they have to make one. So we want to help you be proactive about that, because you will want one for your for the actual science fair for judges and stuff. So we're going to get started by just going through the all the parts of the science fair notebook today by essentially scrolling through the PDF of the example they have on a website. And Eleanor is going to start us off by discussing the abstract and acknowledgements sections.
Yeah, so hi guys, this is the GSDSEF example student notebook that you can find on the GSDSEF website. So I'll be starting off with the abstract, which should be what the judges see first. So it's really important as a first impression, and you should, even though it's only 200 to 250 words, you should actually pay a lot of attention to this short paragraph. What it does is it basically starts with your title and then your hypothesis, and then you briefly describe your procedures and results, and then you conclude and summarize with your conclusions. Yeah, so it's a way for the judges to evaluate your project after doing an interview. It's what makes them remember who you are, so it's very important. After that goes the acknowledgements, and that's where you thank all the people who helped you. It's usually very short, few sentences. People like to put their parents or their teachers or their mentors. That's what it's for.
So the introduction is where you can really start introducing your project. Okay, I guess that's redundant, but essentially it's most likely that your judge won't necessarily be an expert in your specific field. They'll probably be, if you have a medicine project, they'll probably have a background in biology or medicine, but they might not know, specifically like if you're working on like leukemia or I don't know, like a toll-like receptor, something like that. They may not have all the background knowledge. So the introduction is your place to explain the rationale, previous literature, all that for your project, and also show that you did your background research and you're educated about your topic. Next slide, please. And then the review of literature is where you, this takes quite a bit of time, so you should start working on this as soon as possible. It needs to be 3 pages, and it's going to summarize information you learned about your topic. And for instance, like if you're working on a project about like the environment, you probably read a lot of articles about the environment before starting your research, right? So you need to write 3 pages with all the citations and everything, discussing all of the information you found.
So the statement of problem is the area where you want to kind of put in words exactly what you're looking for, kind of like why you're doing this project, but also kind of the goal of the project, what you're trying to accomplish. So for instance, in this case, it's like the effects of radish seeds, germination percentage, and growth rates of plants when they're soaked in water for different times. So it's kind of mainly what you're testing, but also what you're trying to solve, if that makes sense, which is why it's the statement of the problem. And then the hypothesis is where you put your idea. It's normally like an if-then statement. So it's a like tentative testable answer to a scientific question. So this is kind of the answer that you think will be to the statement of problem. So these two are normally like together. So the hypothesis is kind of the prediction on what the outcome of your experiment will be. And then for the materials, the main thing is you want to list everything that you use, and you want to be as specific as possible. So for instance, 3 packs of radish seeds, that's not specific enough. You might want to add the name of the company from where you got it. And then also you want to use metric units for everything that you put. Try and add a lot of numbers and try and get as much information about the materials used as possible.
So the procedure basically provides step-by-step instructions on how you completed your experiment. The overall goal of the procedure is to make sure that if someone wanted to replicate your experiment, they could gain the same results that you did solely from the steps that you've written. The procedure can also include things like pictures after each step to verify and demonstrate that a certain result is obtained after doing a certain action that you wrote. And it's also important, if you decide to do multiple trials, to repeat the appropriate steps in your procedure, or else data from similar trials could be inconsistent. So in this procedure, for example, there are specific numbers on what seeds you're supposed to plant, how long you're supposed to pre-treat the seeds, and how long you're supposed to plant the seeds. And yeah, the procedures in this case is pretty specific. It's about 18 steps. Next slide. So for the results and statistical analysis section, you basically want to outline the outcomes of your raw data in a formalized way. So it could be stored in things such as tables, visualized in graphs, and you can also include things like the mean score or difference from the control variable in your graphs and tables in this section, and extra results that may not fit in formal tables or graphs, such as photos, could be stored in the appendix, which we'll talk about at the end. So for instance, in like this notebook, there are graphs that note like the trend lines of like the lines of best fit and how each different type of pre-treatment of seed affected the overall growth of the plant. And then for the analysis section, you'll basically just be drawing trends from the data that you've collected. So using statistical tools such as standard deviation, p-values, or differences in percentages that you noted from the results, you'll compare and contrast different data from different trials or to the control. And you want to make sure that your analysis is based completely and refers only to the data that was derived from the experiments. And then for this case, it draws trends from the analysis draws trends from the control, which wasn't pre-treating the seeds before growing them.
So it looks like this person is not here, so I'll handle it. So in the conclusion, you're going to restate everything that you like. It's a summary of what you found in your research. You probably want to restate your hypothesis, a bit of your hypothesis, a tiny bit of your methodology, and then the results you found mainly. And then a quick idea about, for example, often like what's the implications of your research, what is it important for, how what can you do next? Yeah, so basically wrapping up your results section. Next one, please. Recommendations are where you can discuss like limitations to your research, like, oh, I only tested my idea on 10 bean plants or 10 like mice, and it's not that many, so I should do like a greater sample size would be good. Or also like next time, I would research not just the effects of temperature, but also the effects of sunlight exposure on plant growth. Next slide, please. So this is the works cited bibliography. I would recommend using a tool like EasyBib or like EasyBib to help you get these citations because they need to be formatted properly and it can take a while to do by hand. So senior division needs 10 citations and junior division needs 5. So everyone here is probably oh, never mind, sorry. And it should be MLA format, but if your teacher uses a different kind, you can also use like APA or something.
So the appendices is the last part of your notebook, and it's where you put all of your raw data. Remember, we mentioned a while back that you should keep all the handwritten notes and the scribbled things that you do during your project, because the judges like to see that and try to understand what led you to your conclusion and how you conducted your procedure. So raw data for this example would be like the measurements of each seed that you took, although it's not necessarily relevant to a summarized graph or whatever average you took, it's necessary or it's useful to put it in the appendices, and any extra pictures that you want to show. If this was a coding project, I know that some people like to put their code in here, or at least the important part of their code. And that's the end of the notebook.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that is good. We'll get this uploaded to the YouTube as soon as possible.